You know what I thought would be fun? If I went to like Hot Topic and picked out clothes for an OC. As we know, Hot Topic serves mostly like alternative and scene fashion. Now, I was a huge metalhead in high school, but I've listened to mostly like 80s thrash and maybe some prog metal here and there. So I was kind of on the outside of all that. Thrash guys had like their battle jackets, but they were mostly just big t-shirts and long hair. And they stunk like beer. Even if that kind of fashion wasn't really closely associated with the music that I listened to, I was still fascinated by it, and I still am, so I think it would make for a fun video. Regardless, let's get into it. So here we are at the mall. I got some sweet tea at this place called Sip. It was alright. I probably should have gotten half and half though. Here's Hot Topic, breeding grounds for pretty much every type of alternative fashion. I was really interested in giving the characters some big chained pants, maybe some of these gloves. I'm still trying to get a grasp on what I really want to make here. I also saw some of these jackets with abstract patterns on them. They kind of remind me of that special edition GBA SP with the tribal tattoo. Here's her classic wall of band t-shirts. I usually always buy from this area of the store. I saw this 3 Days Grace 1X shirt and I really wanted to grab it, but they didn't have anything bigger than a medium. That was a little annoying. I really like the band though. I definitely want to use it for the drawing. I didn't really find anything that sparked all that much interest, and it probably didn't help that I was too nervous to actually spend a significant amount of time browsing through the store with the camera in my hand. So let's do a little brainstorming. I tried laying down a basic idea of what I was going for. Baggy clothes, maybe a beanie. I decided that I wanted to see more of the hair and ears. I did see some nice earrings, so why not include those too? I definitely wanted to give them baggy jeans with a chain. That's just like the epitome of cool, you know? This might be counterproductive to the whole idea behind this video, but I decided to just look on the Hot Topic website for inspiration. I've always really liked these Gur hoodies. I'm glad they still sell these things. Maybe I should watch Invader Zim again. I also really like these other hoodies with these design patches on them. Most of these have pretty generic licensed artwork on them though. This one is a pretty cool outfit in the photo. I found another Gur hoodie, but this one has a really cool design I think I could work with. Let's just screenshot that one too. Let's go look at some pants now. Pretty much every pair of pants that Hot Topic sells goes pretty well with the vibe I was shooting for. And that being said, I definitely want to exaggerate the wide leg bagginess that some of these have. I really like this pair of gray pants here. They have a chain and a fabric strip that hangs off of one of the pockets. That's pretty cool looking. I also wanted to look around at some earrings to give the character, but a lot of these are just licensed characters. I think something a little more generic would look fine. I'll figure that out a little later, I think. Now that I have a better idea what I want the clothes to look like, I'll go ahead and start sketching again. I really like the swoopy haircuts you see with a lot of this sort of fashion. Think like Anthony Padilla from Smosh. So I'll try to incorporate some of that. I decided kinda early on that this character should be a dog girl for no particular reason. Tried giving her glasses here, but I wasn't feeling it. I ended up spending a pretty long time just trying to get these to look right, to the point where I was probably starting to overdo it. I tend to do this when I'm anxious about how something will turn out. I think I was definitely starting to feel some of that while recording this, knowing it was supposed to be more of a project-type vlog. That's something you can't really avoid sometimes, but it's good to be able to notice it and give yourself a break to reset things. Which wasn't something I was really able to do here, but you get the idea. Thankfully, I managed to cut myself short and jumped into the sketch for the actual drawing I wanted to make. I went with a simple pose, just trying to block in the details I wanted to include in the outfit. Just a lot of going back and forth, checking the reference, and seeing what I can add. I also went and pulled up that 3 Days Grace shirt I found on the website, just so that I could lay out the design on the shirt. You'll also notice I'm adding a bag. I saw a handful of those at the store and I thought it would be a cool inclusion. Now I'm about to do some erasing, so that I can layer upon the sketch in some places. I'm not convinced this was entirely necessary either, probably just a continuation of that same anxiety I was feeling before while working on the face. A lot of these details probably could have been left out of the sketch and worked on while I was doing line art instead. On to the inking. I started out on the face again, as usual. The face tends to be one of the focal points of a drawing, so it's an easy place to get started. I was going for an exaggerated toothy grin for this one. I thought it would be pretty fun and goofy. I also gave her a collar/choker thing, a necessity if I do say so myself. You'll notice I drew the hood of the jacket kind of draped over the shoulders here. If you saw the first chapter of my comic, which I promise I'll get back to soon, both of the characters are wearing hoodies, so I got a good amount of practice making sense of how the fabric tends to fall. I'll probably make a fabric and clothing tutorial at some point, so stay tuned for that. Just working on more of the hair here, putting in the ear and filling out some of the darker shadow spots. I also gave her these little crescent earrings, which I thought were cute. But yeah, a lot of the line art is just jumping back and forth, adding detail and outlines, trying to balance everything. I definitely want to go for that manga-like shading where there's a bunch of black spots everywhere. I've always thought that looks really good in ink. I'm also adding the strap for the bag, which I somehow forgot even though I included it in the sketch, so I'll have to white out some of that. This jacket is like one of those double layer sleeve shirts where the inner sleeves are sewn into the outer ones. I haven't worn one of those since I was in middle school, but I think I'd prefer that to wearing two shirts. Another thing I really liked about the jacket I'm referencing are the big white seams that run everywhere. I'm planning on adding screen tones to this drawing digitally, so I'll make them white later. There's also these stripes I need to take care of. I'm just drawing out the outlines and filling them in with a black felt pen. You might notice that the fills end up a little blotchy, and I think part of that is because I'm leaning back from the camera, so then my head doesn't show up in the shot, but also because my eyes don't work very well. I'll end up fixing those later too. And speaking of which, finally cleaning up those lines that go through the strap with some whiteout. Gotta make sure I include that little patch. I freaking drew through the wet whiteout and got like a big blob of it on my pen tip. I know I said in the last video that I usually don't include irises, but for most drawings, you gotta. I decided to add this little piece of fabric wrapped around the tail here. I think it gives it a little bit of cool detail. That 3 Days Grace shirt that I saw had this kind of decorative, gothic-y font on it, so I quickly wrote something out that looked like it and started to draw the paper dolls from the album cover, which I am pulling up on my tablet for reference. I think this is definitely one of the more striking album covers I've ever seen, and it's very recognizable. Just throwing in some more folds and stuff on the shirt here. I'm pulling up the reference image again here just to get in a little more of the details. Can't forget the little grr patch. It was actually super hot in the food court where I was drawing, thanks in no small part to the massive skylight above me. It's probably something like 80 degrees in there. Fun. You can see I started drawing and immediately got white out on my hand. Had to wipe it off. Now I'm actually giving it a proper amount of time to dry. Here I'm starting to draw the rest of the bag and the right arm. I didn't do anything crazy for this chain here. I started out trying to draw the individual links, but relegated myself to just scribbling by the end of it. They had a lot of different bags at the store, but I ended up just drawing something kind of generic since it wasn't really a big focus of the drawing. I changed the pocket slightly from the reference. It was originally supposed to be pretty small, but I made it more of a cargo pants type of a thing. Gotta make sure every little bit of this drawing has fabric detail on it. Now I'm going back in and filling the stripes on the right arm. And while I'm at it, why not just put in more shadows? I'm nearing the end of this session here. I'm pretty happy with what it looks like so far. Just going back over it again to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm trying not to leave any gaps with the shading so that it looks more coherent. It leads to a higher quality result. A little clap and I'm packing my stuff up and going home. I'm back home now. It's actually the next day. I noticed a few more things I wanted to clean up, including those blotchy fills that I had done before, but first I have to erase all the pencil sketches from underneath the ink. I try not to do this right after I finish the drawing because a lot of the ink is still wet and I don't want to smear it everywhere. Most of this is just me cleaning up the fills, nothing too incredibly interesting. There was a small gap I left open on the hood, so I made sure to get that finished while I was still working on it on paper. Since I want to do the screen tones digitally, I need to scan the drawing. I usually do this using my cheap, god-awful Canon printer that my dad got at Best Buy for like 30 bucks, I think. My scanning software of choice is actually just Microsoft Paint. It does what it needs to. Just a quick check over the scan and I'm good to import it into Clip Studio. Once I get it in Clip Studio, I make sure to adjust the levels so that it's pure white and closer to black for the dark parts. And that just helps make it look a little cleaner. I was also experimenting with coloring the sleeves green, like the actual jacket is. But I decided it really didn't look all that great, especially next to all the black and white around it. For the screen tones, I'm just using a transparent black layer inside of a group that has a screen tone layer effect on it. That makes this part pretty quick and easy since I don't have to add them to each layer individually. I'm also experimenting with trying to get the text on the shirt to be white alongside the paper dolls. It ends up taking me a few tries though. Here I'm messing with adding some highlights on the hair. You also notice I used a noise layer for the pants, just so it has a bit of a different texture from the rest of the clothes. I darkened up all the colors and I'm going in to add the white line art that I mentioned I wanted to have previously. It just ends up taking a lot of cleanup with a layer mask. Do some more adjustments here with the brightness of each part of the clothes, and I'm ready for my first test render. Pretty much every time I go to do that I realize that it's not quite as finished as I thought, and there's a lot of places that need cleanup all over the drawing. So it's just a game of like I Spy, trying to find every little bit that you can fix. It's really important not to go overboard with this though, because it's a rabbit hole that never ends. After some feedback from another person, I've decided to add some highlights to the hair, and I think it adds a lot to the look. While I'm at it, I'm also cleaning up some of the other highlights I added before. Just a few more details here and there, and this thing's pretty much done. And here's the final drawing. I'm pretty happy with how this came out, to be honest. I really nailed the vibe I was going for, or at least I think so. If I were to change anything, it'd probably be the pose. It's not like the most interesting thing I've ever drawn, but it gets across what it needs to, and I think that's all I can really ask for. Thanks for watching.